My name's Philip Lessard at Agrivida. I'm the head of the biochemistry group. I'm also a project manager and the head of the QA function at the company. I think like most people, as a kid, just having a tremendous curiosity and why things work the way they do and how things are put together, etc. Biology per se, though, I would have to say is because I had a really engaging biology teacher in high school. I had a good physics teacher and a good chemistry teacher, but really it was the biology teacher who made an impression. Such an impression that I decided to go to college to become an artist. So I actually, I double majored in college, but my objective in college was to become a medical illustrator. That's what I really wanted to do. I wanted to do art with a sort of a scientific flavoring to it. And I took a TAing job for a faculty member in the biology department and found that to be really fascinating. Just the research environment. You know, I was just a TA for a course, but I worked with him in his lab and setting things up for this class. And I thought, oh, this is really interesting. And he's the one that suggested I look into going into graduate school. The arts seek to describe the world around us, you know, either from an emotional point of view or a poetic point of view. You know, it could be simply descriptive, could be explanatory, but in the sciences, you're also seeking to explain things. And often it's just for the joy of explaining things. That's basic science. Just how does this work? Why does it work that way? I happen to be fortunate in that I can explore those questions, but I can also apply them in a way that says, all right, if we understand how this works, what can we do with it? How can we contribute to society? If you were just to say, you know, on the clock, you know, how many billable hours do I spend in the day doing something creative or doing something that's routine? It's 99% of the time I'm just doing the work. There are moments where you sit and you ponder and you come up with a creative idea, but the truth is that's going on in your head all the time. You know, 5 o'clock comes around and yeah, like I bolt out the door as soon as the Fred Flintstone whistle blows, but you're still thinking about it. And you're thinking about it all the time. Sometimes you wake up in the middle of the night and, oh, here's a way to think about that. And so that you never know where the creative inspiration is going to come. And it may not be the most insightful, most impactful bit of creativity. It's not like, oh, here's a new product focus for the company that'll make us $18 million in the first quarter of next year. No. You know, sometimes it's, if I tried to solve this technical problem from a different point of view, oh, it would make our lives easier, right? And sometimes these creative bursts are patentable, and sometimes no one will even notice them. But hey, now some things are easier. You know, I used to teach at MIT, and one of the first things I would always tell my students, first day of class, this was a research course, so they were in the lab every day for the entire semester. I would say you learn more from your mistakes than you do from your successes. And then I would say, I hope you learn a lot, meaning I hope you make a lot of mistakes, because you really do learn. You know, if you do something perfectly, you have no idea what the failure modes are. You have no idea whether your system is robust, whether your approach is sound and reproducible until you screw it up. I remember I mentioned in college, I worked with this one faculty member as a TA. He was teaching a course called Introduction to Plant Development. So he was a plant biologist. And honestly, I hadn't given plants a second thought. You know, in my opinion, plants were like grass, and the main purpose of their existence was to be mowed. So that was it. I had a very rudimentary understanding of plants, but just going through the course with him, it was just fascinating. So that when I did go to graduate school, I actually started working on plants, and more from a developmental gene expression point of view, which is what interested me at the time. Then I went to work for Monsanto for a couple of years, where we were doing very applied plant science. That was in the early days before commercializing Bt crops and herbicide-resistant crops. In fact, I was involved in some of the early field tests of those things. And so I had this plant background at that point. Then I went into the hinterlands at MIT for 14 years and rarely mentioned the word plants to anyone, and just worked on microbiology, so applied microbiology, metabolic engineering, those sorts of fields. But when this opportunity opened up at Agrivida, and this was 15 years ago, something to that effect. Anyways, whatever it was. I thought, wow, here's a chance to go back to my roots, literally. We're going into different product areas, and some of them, so our mission has evolved over the years, as often happens, especially with very small companies, is you set out to do one thing and you get really good at it, but a new opportunity opens up and it requires only a minor shift in the technical focus, whereas the skills and everything else you're using are still relevant. And so it's, again, leveraging the existing skills, but going into a new product area. And we're continuing to do that, trying to build off this platform of being able to produce proteins in plants that have various functionalities. And so, for example, most of our commercializable products are enzymes at the moment, enzymes that are used primarily in animal feed applications. But, how can we modify crops to additionally enhance animal husbandry, for example? And so one of the things we're working on now is a protein in plants that will help to alleviate a disease that affects pretty much all the poultry crops in the world, all the chicken production in the world. If you grow chickens, you have to deal with this disease. It's unavoidable. And we have a non-antibiotic way of dealing with that. And so we're simultaneously doing interesting biology. Even though we're working in plants, immunology is how this works. So, a working understanding of immunology and disease progression is important for this. So those are two unrelated fields. How can you deliver that in a cost-effective way? Meanwhile, there's a very real push and a very real interest in the population of how can we remove antibiotics from our food supply, given the challenge of antibiotic resistance and microbial resistance, pathogen resistance to antibiotics. Is there a way we can eliminate that? And by working in this one area, we can address all those things simultaneously. So that's an example of using the same technology to address a different concern with different benefits. And going further into other product areas, so beyond animal husbandry, growing livestock, there are other things we can do with this technology, and we're exploring those areas as well. And you try a little pilot project this way and that way, and you discover what are the technical challenges, and then you really have to get creative to overcome those. And it's terrific working in a group, because no one person has to solve all the problems, and one person contributes a little tidbit, another person contributes a little tidbit, and at the end it works, and you forget whose idea was what. But you don't care, we're all in this together, and then it works. So that's kind of interesting. It's kind of fun.